You're 10 years old. Your father yells at you for something you didn't do. Your eyes well up. He yells louder. Stop crying. What are you crying for? Now you're scared, confused. The tears come faster. You want me to give you something to cry about? You learn very quickly. Crying makes it worse. Sadness makes him angry. Fear makes him angrier. So you stop. You swallow it. You disappear inside yourself. You learn that your feelings are the problem, not what happened to you, your reaction to it. Years later, you're an adult who can't cry, can't name what you're feeling, can't tell the difference between sad and angry because you learned to bury both. How did showing emotion become disrespect? Let me show you where this shows up. It's the teenager who gets grounded for talking back when all they did was explain their side. Voice raised slightly in frustration, disrespectful. Tears, manipulation, silence, attitude. You can't win because there's no right way to have feelings when feelings themselves are the problem. It's the adult child who finally confronts a parent about something that hurt them, calmly, respectfully, with "I feel" statements they learned in therapy. The parent still hears disrespect because questioning, to them, is disrespect. Saying "that hurt me" sounds like blame. Having needs reads as entitlement. Your feelings get translated as attacks. It's the family gathering where someone says something offensive. You flinch, you go quiet. Later, someone pulls you aside. Why are you being so sensitive? You're making everyone uncomfortable. Your discomfort makes them uncomfortable, so your discomfort becomes the problem. Here's one people don't talk about. You're 25. You tell your mother you're struggling with depression. Her response isn't, "How can I help?" It's, "What do you have to be depressed about? Look at everything I gave you." Your pain becomes an accusation. Your feelings become ingratitude. And if you've ever been told you're too sensitive or too emotional for having a normal human response to pain, you know this isn't about volume or tone. It's about whether you're allowed to have feelings at all. So what's actually happening here? Why does crying equal disrespect in some families but not others? Here's what the parent or elder sees when you show emotion. They see weakness, softness, vulnerability that will get you destroyed. Because in their world, emotions were expensive, dangerous even. From their perspective, teaching you not to cry isn't cruelty, it's protection. They grew up in worlds where showing emotion had consequences, where crying could get you hurt worse, where sadness was seen as self-pity, where expressing fear made you a target. Maybe they grew up in war, in poverty, in violence, in instability, where survival required a stone face. So when they say, "Stop crying," what they mean is, "The world is cruel. I'm preparing you." When they say, "I'll give you something to cry about," they mean, "Your pain is nothing compared to what's possible. Be grateful." When they call you too sensitive, they're saying, "Sensitivity will break you. I'm trying to make you strong." They're not being monsters. They're being survivalists, passing down the armor they needed. But here's what they don't see. You're not living in their world. Now here's what you experience when you're told your emotions are disrespect. You learn that your feelings are wrong, not just inconvenient, wrong. You learn that your internal experience doesn't matter. That pain is only valid if someone else agrees it's painful enough, that you can't trust your own reactions. You grow up thinking, if I'm hurt, I'm probably overreacting. If I'm angry, I'm probably being dramatic. If I'm sad, I'm probably just weak. You learn to perform okayness even when you're drowning, because not okayness is disrespect. And here's the part that breaks you. You start doing it to yourself. You don't need them to tell you to stop crying anymore. You tell yourself. You don't need them to call you sensitive. You call yourself that. You've internalized the message. Your feelings are the problem. You are the problem. Both perspectives make sense from their worlds, but these worlds are on a collision course. So let's look at where each world came from. Let me take you into a specific moment. It's 1978, Lagos, Nigeria. You're 8 years old. Your name is Adana. Your mother is trying to feed 5 children. Her salary is worth half what it was last month. The government changed the currency again. There's no food in the house. Your stomach hurts. It's been hurting all day. You try to be quiet about it, but you're 8 and you're hungry, and eventually you start to cry. Your mother grabs your arm, not hard, but firm. Stop that crying. Crying doesn't make food appear. She's not being cruel. She's trying to teach you something essential. Feelings don't change reality. Action does. And right now, she needs to act. Find food, find money, find a way, not feel. That night, she leaves you with your grandmother, goes to clean houses, comes back at midnight with bread and eggs. You're asleep. You don't see her cry in the bathroom because she learned the same lesson from her mother. You cry in private. You cry when the children can't see. You cry when survival is secured, never before. Or it's 1985, Kingston, Jamaica. Your father is 15. His father just beat him for crying when his dog died. Big man don't cry over dog. You think I have time for this? You have food, you have roof, then you have no reason to cry. His father isn't a monster. His father grew up in a time when men who showed emotion were seen as weak. And weak men didn't survive. Weak men got taken advantage of. Weak men couldn't protect their families. So he's teaching his son what he was taught. Emotions are luxury. Men are providers. You don't get to fall apart. You hold it together. Your father learns this so well that when he has children, he can't unlearn it. Even when the world has changed, even when the danger has passed, his nervous system still thinks emotions are survival threats. So when you cry, his body responds like you're in danger, and the only way he knows to protect you is by making you stop. Here's what this world taught them. Emotions don't fix problems. They create them. Crying wastes time. Sadness makes you a target. Fear paralyzes. Anger gets you killed. In their world, emotional suppression wasn't trauma. It was strategy. It was what kept people alive. So when they look at you crying over a bad grade, a failed relationship, or a job rejection, they're not seeing your pain. They're seeing someone who doesn't understand how much worse it could be. And they're terrified you're soft. Because softness, in their experience, doesn't survive. Now, let's look at the world you're living in. You grew up with access to language your parents never had. Therapy, trauma, emotional regulation, mental health. Words for things they never had words for. You grew up watching their generation die young. Heart attacks at 55, strokes at 60. Your uncle who just collapsed one day. Your aunt with high blood pressure that came from nowhere. Nowhere? Or 50 years of feelings that had nowhere to go. You grew up online where people talk openly about panic attacks and depression and burnout, where emotional literacy isn't weakness, it's basic vocabulary. You learned that suppressing emotions doesn't make you strong, it makes you sick. Here's what your world looks like. It's 2025, you're 27, you have a degree, you have a job, you're doing everything right. But you wake up with your chest tight, anxiety that has no name, sadness that has no obvious cause, because your body is keeping score of every feeling you swallowed. Your generation isn't weaker, you're responding to different dangers. Your parents' generation feared poverty, war, starvation, real, external threats. Your generation fears suicide, overdose, loneliness so profound you can be in a room full of people and completely alone. The leading cause of death for people your age isn't violence or disease, it's yourself. That's what your parents don't see, that suppressing emotions doesn't build strength anymore, it builds body counts. You watched your parents' generation tough it out, and you watched them collapse. Marriages that died, relationships with children that never formed, bodies that broke down decades too early. So when your mother says, "What do you have to be depressed about?" she's comparing your life to hers. And materially, you have more. But emotionally, you're carrying everything she never processed, plus your own. That's not privilege. That's inheritance. You didn't reject strength. You redefined it. Strength in your world isn't pretending you're fine. It's admitting when you're not. It's going to therapy. It's learning to cry again after years of choking it down. That's not weakness. That's courage your parents never had the luxury to develop. So when they say, toughen up, you hear, die the way I'm dying, and you're choosing differently. Here's where these two worlds meet, and neither side can see the other. You're at dinner, your mother is talking about your cousin who just got promoted. You mention you've been struggling at work, stressed, burned out, thinking about taking some time off. Your mother stops eating. Time off? You just started 2 years ago. You try to explain. I'm exhausted, Mom. I can't sleep. I think I need to see someone, maybe a therapist. Her face changes. A therapist? What do you need a therapist for? You have everything, food, roof. Good job. What more do you want? Here's what's happening under the surface. You're saying, I'm struggling. I need help. This pace is unsustainable. I'm trying to prevent a breakdown. She's hearing, everything I sacrificed wasn't enough. You're ungrateful. You're weak. You're wasting the opportunities I bled for. You hear her response as, your feelings don't matter. You're being dramatic. I don't care that you're suffering. She means, I'm terrified. I gave you everything I didn't have, and you're still not happy. What did I do wrong? Same conversation. Two completely different conversations happening at the same time. But here's what changes everything. They weren't teaching you to be strong. They were teaching you to survive a world that no longer exists. The world that punished tears. You're not living in it. The world where emotions got you killed. That's not your reality. They're protecting you from their past, but you're living in your present. And the armor they gave you, it doesn't fit the war you're fighting. That's the collision. They're handing you survival tools for a war that's over, and you're trying to build a life, not just survive one. Neither of you is wrong. You're just speaking different languages, languages shaped by different dangers. And without translation, love sounds like judgment, protection sounds like dismissal, and everyone ends up hurt. Let me tell you about Marcus. Marcus is 32 now. He grew up in a Ghanaian household in Toronto. In his house, emotions were weakness. Crying was for women. Men endure. That's what men do. When Marcus was 16, his best friend died in a car accident. At the funeral, Marcus stood by the casket and cried, not loudly, just tears running down his face. His father pulled him aside in the parking lot, away from everyone. Control yourself. You're embarrassing the family. Marcus wiped his face, swallowed everything, and learned right there, grief is embarrassing, sadness is shameful. Being a man means being a stone. So he stopped feeling. He became the strong one, the one everyone leaned on, the one who never broke. He buried his best friend and never cried again. At 25, Marcus had a panic attack during a work presentation. Couldn't breathe, vision tunneling, thought he was having a heart attack. Co-workers called an ambulance. The ER doctor ran tests. Everything came back normal. Anxiety, the doctor said. Severe. Have you considered therapy? Marcus called his father from the hospital, told him what happened, what the doctor said. His father's response, therapy, anxiety. Marcus, what do you have to be anxious about? I gave you everything. You're not a child anymore. You need to man up. And Marcus realized something that broke him. His father genuinely didn't understand, because his father had buried his feelings so deep for so long, he couldn't recognize them anymore, not in himself, not in his son. His father wasn't being cruel, he was being consistent. He had lived 60 years swallowing everything, and he survived, so why couldn't Marcus? Marcus went to therapy anyway. His father didn't speak to him for 3 months, called it Western nonsense. In therapy, Marcus learned he'd been having panic attacks for years. He just didn't know what they were. He thought everyone felt like that. He thought being a man meant living with a constant knot in your chest. He learned to cry again, started with small things, a sad movie, a memory of his friend. Then, bigger things, the childhood he didn't get to have, the father he wished he had. It was terrifying and necessary. His father still doesn't understand, still calls him soft when he thinks Marcus can't hear, still tells relatives, my son is going through something, with that tone that means shame. But here's what Marcus knows now. His father isn't the villain. His father is a man who never learned that feelings are information, not weakness. A man who equated emotional suppression with love. A man who thought the best gift he could give his son was the same armor that was crushing him. Marcus loves his father and grieves him because his father is alive but unreachable, protected by walls so thick Marcus can't get through anymore. Marcus is learning. Feeling doesn't make you weak. Pretending not to feel is what breaks you. He's not there yet. Some days, he still catches himself swallowing tears, still hears his father's voice. Control yourself. But he's trying. He's the interruption, the place where the cycle breaks. And maybe his children, if he has them, won't have to learn what he's unlearning. Here's the reframe that changes everything. Your emotions are not disrespect. They never were. Disrespect is dismissing someone's humanity. Your emotions are proof of your humanity. Crying isn't weakness. It's your body trying to release what it can't hold anymore. Anger isn't bad behavior. It's information that a boundary was crossed. Sadness isn't self-pity. It's the appropriate response to loss. Fear isn't cowardice. It's your nervous system trying to protect you. Your feelings are not the problem. The world that taught you they were, that's the problem. And here's what's wild. The parents who told you not to cry, they needed to cry too. They just never got to. The parents who called you sensitive, they had to kill their sensitivity to survive. The parents who said your feelings were disrespect, their feelings were never respected either. This isn't about blame. This is about inheritance. They were traumatized, and they traumatized you, not because they were evil, but because trauma doesn't stop with understanding. It stops with interruption, and you're the interruption. You're the generation that says, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not passing this down. I'm not teaching my children that their humanity is a problem. That's not disrespect. That's evolution. So, what does this mean practically? When someone calls you disrespectful for having feelings, you can know that's their trigger, not your truth. When someone says you're too sensitive, you can translate it. I never learned to hold space for feelings, including my own. When someone tells you to stop crying, you can understand your tears scare me because I was taught tears are dangerous. You don't have to agree. You don't have to perform emotional flatness to keep them comfortable. You can say, I'm not being disrespectful, I'm being honest. You can say, my feelings aren't a tax on you, they're just my feelings. You can say, I'm allowed to be sad and I'm allowed to tell you. Will they understand? Maybe not. Their world doesn't have room for that yet. But your world does, and you're building a different one. And here's what you need to hear. You're not too sensitive. You're sensitive, and that's neutral. That's human. You're not too emotional. You have emotions. That's how bodies work. You're not disrespectful for feeling things. You're honest. And honesty isn't disrespect. The fact that you can still feel after being taught not to? That's not weakness. That's resilience. You survived an environment that tried to teach you that your humanity was a problem, and you're still here, trying to feel, trying to heal, trying to be whole. That's not too much. That's incredible. So here's what I want you to sit with. What were you not allowed to feel? Anger, sadness, fear, joy? And what did that cost you? Because naming the cost is the first step to healing it. Maybe it cost you relationships because you couldn't be vulnerable. Maybe it cost you career opportunities because you couldn't advocate for yourself. Maybe it cost you years learning what feelings even are. Maybe it cost you trust in yourself. You can grieve that. You're allowed to. And you can also know it's not too late. You can learn emotional literacy at 30, at 40, at 50. You can learn that feelings aren't facts, but they're also not lies. You can learn to cry without shame, to be angry without violence, to be sad without apologizing for it. You can learn what your parents didn't get to learn, that emotions are information, that vulnerability is connection, that being human isn't disrespect. This is the Context Room, where survival meets healing, where we explore the worlds that shape how we think, live, and choose. Thank you for spending this time with me. Your feelings aren't disrespect. They're the most honest thing about you. And you were never too much. You were just too much for a world that was too small.